is Captain Chaudhary. Today I'm going to speak about both to blame collision. Now, whenever collision takes place, there is transaction of money or reimbursement by P&I, hull and machinery, etc. Then there are various principles involved. So what I'm going to talk about is the role and connectivity of both to blame collision clause in various contracts. Now, before we understand both to blame collision, we must also understand that there are several individual principles which will decide, like how much loss will incur to a ship owner. For example, whether a single liability principle is used or cross liability principle is used. Cargo is on one ship or cargo is on both the ships. Is there any clause that curtails the liability of the ship owner? For example, Hague rule protects the ship owner for the damage to the cargo which is caused because of the master's negligence or mistaken navigation. We also have to consider whether a 3/4 collision liability clause is there in hull and machinery, which generally is incorporated in hull and machinery insurance. Then whether you have 50-50 liability or proportional liability. To start with, what is a single liability and what is cross liability? Let us say there are two ships, A and B. Now A incurs a damage of USD 400 and B incurs damage of US dollars 1000, right? So total loss is equal to 1400. So if we talk about the 50-50 liability, 50-50 liability means both the ships are liable for 50% of the total loss. Total loss is 1400. That means A is liable to pay 700, contribute 700, and B is liable to contribute 700. Now it can be arranged by two different principles. One is single liability principle, another one is cross liability principle. Now under single liability principle, now whatever is the difference, 1000 minus 400, the difference is 600. Half of 600 is 300. A pays B US dollar 300. Other way of looking at the same situation is like A must pay 500 to B, that is 50% of B's damage, because the proportion liability is 50-50, right? The blame is 50-50, and B is supposed to pay A 200, that is half of the 400, which means that instead of A paying 500 here and B paying 200 here, it's better that the ship A pays B 300, right? Either way, ship A pays B 300. We can see here that by single liability principle, actually B does not pay anything to A. It's only A that pays money to B. So flow of money is only one way. It is not that both the ships are paying each other. Flow of money is only one way. This is called single liability principle. Now what is this double liability principle or cross liability principle? Cross liability principle means A is compelled to pay B 500 and B is compelled to pay A 200. Net effect is the same. That means intership or ship to ship transfer is once again 300. But here instead of money flowing one way, money is flowing both the ways. So this is called cross liability principle. Now cross liability principle is important when there is an arrangement with P&I club that whenever any ship pays money like this to the other ship for the damages, etc., P&I will reimburse. So in this particular case where A was paying B US dollar 300, right, P&I would reimburse the vessel A by 300, but here A is paying B 500. P&I will reimburse the ship A with US dollar 500. So that is the difference. So difference is made if P&I comes into picture. If P&I must reimburse the ship for the damages that the ship has paid to the other ship. So that is the difference between single liability and cross liability. Let's take the situation where only one of the vessels is damaged. So ship A incurs the damage of $800, which is he is insured for, and he also incurs a loss of $400. That is loss of use. For example, the vessel could not get any business, whereas she comes in collision with vessel B, which is only superficially damaged. B is only superficially damaged, and it does not amount to any damage in terms of monetary value. Each vessel is blamed 50%. A does not pay anything to B. B pays A $600, out of which 400 goes to the hull and machinery insurer and 200 goes to A for loss of use. Let us now try to understand what is the difference caused by single liability and cross liability principles. Say that A incurs loss like this, 800 plus 400, and B also incurs a loss of $1,200. So if we talk about ship to ship payment, nobody pays anybody anything. A does not pay anything to B, B does not pay anything to A. And if the P&I must pay the ships, say for example, let's look at this situation from A's point of view. If P&I of A must reimburse A for the amount of money that is paid to the other ship, A does not get anything from P&I. When we involve the cross liability principle, in cross liability principle, what happens is B, we are assuming that they are 50% at fault. B pays A $600, right? B to A $600. Now A will also pay B $600, but P&I of A pays to A $600, and then hull and machinery pays $200. So this is the situation. This is what happens in the cross liability. Now in single liability exchange, where nobody pays the other ship anything, A does not get anything from the P&I, but here you see in cross liability principle, A gets from P&I $600. Under Hague-B rule, the carrier is provided immunity by the cargo owner, which means that, we have seen in Article 3 of Hague-B rule, the first immunity that is provided to the master, mariner, pilot, etc. is for the fault in navigation or management of the ship. This means the cargo owner must provide immunity to the carrier or the ship owner. Now, this immunity is available provided the ship is seaworthy at the commencement of the voyage. If the ship is not seaworthy or the master is not exercised due diligence to keep the ship seaworthy, then this particular advantage is not available. But let us assume that this advantage is available and the carrier gets immunity for navigational faults. This means that the cargo owner of carrying vessel must provide immunity to the carrier or the ship owner against navigational faults. Let's say here is ship A and here is ship B. They come in collision. Now A has got immunity from the cargo owner, like by Hague-B rule, but A does not have similar immunity against B. So if there is this damage to the cargo in A, B pays for the complete cargo damage. B will pay the damage to cargo, whatever is damage to the cargo, B will compensate the cargo owner. or cargo insurer. But B will recover 50%. Suppose he pays 100% damage to A, 100% of the cargo damage to A. Now B will recover 50% from A. So from A, 50% goes back to B. Now when A has paid money to B, whether this way or the other way, A is paying money for the cargo damage. That means this particular thing is going against the Hague-B principle. So this means A has to pay for the cargo damage. So immunity that is provided by the Hague-B rule does not hold good here. Now whatever he has paid back to B, the cargo insurer must compensate A for that. So if A gets that money, then we can say that the Hague-B rule, or whatever immunity Hague-B rule has provided, holds good here. But that will happen only after inserting of a clause that is both to blame collision clause. So under both to blame collision clause, whatever money is paid by A to B is compensated by the cargo insurer and A gets the money. So that means both to blame collision clause becomes compatible to the principle or immunity that is provided by the Hague-B rule. In order that the immunity that is provided by Hague-B rule holds good, it is very important that both to blame collision clause is inserted in various policies or agreements, etc. For example, the cargo insurer will insert this clause, both to blame collision clause, in the cargo policy which he gives to the cargo owner, as well as whatever agreement we do, say for example ship owner with shipper or ship owner with the charterer, we must make sure that this particular clause, both to blame collision clause, is there in the agreements. Now let us try and understand 50-50 liability versus proportional liability principle. In 1910, the Brussels Convention in this respect was established on the initiative of CMI, Comité Maritime International. Prior to that date, there were different kind of liability principles or blame principles prevailing all over the world. Now what happened here is the proportional liability principle was introduced. It means that the damages which will be paid by one ship to the other ship will depend on the blame or the percentage of blame. It is like whatever is the damage of other ship, right, multiplied by the percentage blame of own ship is the amount of compensation you are supposed to pay to the other ship. Same way the other ship will pay me the damage multiplied by proportion of liability of that ship. So this is proportional liability. Now in USA, most of the maritime nations, they agreed to this principle except USA. USA still followed 50-50 principle, right? But there was a Supreme Court case in 1975 in US whereby they allowed proportional liability principle. Now without involving P&I and Helen machinery, let us concentrate on ship-to-ship transfer. Let us once again assume that here is the ship A comes in collision with B. There is damage caused to both the ships. Like A incurs the damage of US dollars 80,000 and B US dollar 40,000. Now we'll try and understand the exchange that takes place between the two ships, exchange of money, when 50-50 US principle is applied and when proportional liability principle is applied. Say for example, A is 20% to blame and B is 80% to blame. Let's see what happens. Now in case of 50-50 liability, what happens is A pays B half of 40,000, that is 20,000. B pays A half of 80,000, that is 40,000, right? So in effect, B has to pay A 20,000. Or other method is, what is the difference of losses? 80 minus 40 is 40,000. Half of 40,000 is 20,000. So B must pay A 20,000. So this is 50-50 principle. But now let us understand the same exchange of money using the proportional liability principle. Proportional liability principle means whatever is my damage, right? Multiply this by percentage of blame of the other ship. Now this ship is blamed 80%. So B must pay a 80% of 80,000. So 80,000, 80% would be 64,000 US dollar, 64,000. That is the amount B will pay A, and A will pay B 40,000 multiplied by 20%, that is 8,000. So if it was 50-50 liability principle used, then B was paying A US dollar 20,000, but in this case, look at this, B pays 64,000 to A and A pays 8,000 to B. The difference is 56,000, right? So in effect, B pays A 56,000. Look at the difference. If it was 50-50 principle, B would have paid A 20,000, and if it is proportional liability principle with B to be blamed 80%, A blamed 20%, then B pays A 56,000 US dollar, 56,000. That means you are paying 36,000 more because of this principle. I hope you have understood what is the difference between 50-50 principle and proportional liability principle. Now let us try and understand what is the role of 3/4 collision liability in payment made by a ship to the other. Normally, third-party liabilities or many of the indeterminate claims, as we know, is paid by P&I. But collision is one of the situations where hull and machinery agrees to pay about 3/4 of the liability or the claims that come from the other ship. So let us try and understand what is this 3/4 collision liability clause. Okay, now 3/4 paid by hull and machinery means remaining 1/4 will be paid by P&I. So how does the clause go? Underwriters or hull and machinery agree to indemnify the assured the 3/4 of any sum or sums which is paid by the assured to any person or persons by the reason of the assured becoming legally liable for the damages on following accounts. Number one, loss or damage to any vessel or vessels or property thereon. Number two is delay to or loss of use by the other vessel or property thereon. Number three, salvage of or general average of or salvage under contract of the other vessel or property thereon. Where such payment is done by the vessel or the insured to the other vessel as a consequence of the ship coming in collision with the other vessel, insurer indemnifies the insured. Here a few things we must understand, that indemnity that is provided by 3/4 collision clause is in addition to any other indemnity that is provided by other clauses. Where insured comes in collision with another vessel, unless the liability of one or both the vessels is limited by law, the indemnity under this clause will be decided by the principle of cross liability. Also, this must be understood that under no situation the total liability of underwriters will exceed 3/4 of the insurance value, that is the value of the ship. Also, the insurers will pay for 3/4 of the legal cost that is incurred by the assured. Let's now talk about both to blame collision clause. What does it say? It says whenever two ships come in collision with each other because of the neglect of other vessel, negligence of the other vessel, and act, neglect or default of master, mariner, pilot or servant of the carrier in navigation or management of the ship, the cargo interest will indemnify. Cargo interest will indemnify the own ship, that is the carrying ship, in respect of loss or liability to another vessel or non-carrying vessel, insofar as such loss or liability or damage represents the claim of the cargo owner on other ship, paid or payable by another ship or non-carrying vessel to the owner of the cargo, and set off recouped or recovered by another vessel or non-carrying vessel as part of their claim against the carrying vessel. This foregoing provision will also apply in case there are other ships or objects which are involved, whose owners are involved, they are at fault in respect of this collision. This means if the two ships come in collision, with each other, this is say carrying ship, this is non-carrying ship. This is ship A. Now these ships, carrying ships, act, neglect or default in navigation or management of the ship, plus non-carrying vessels negligence. Then the cargo interest to indemnify A in respect of, like cargo interest is supposed to indemnify A in respect of all the losses plus liability to non-carrying vessels. Loss or liability to non-carrying vessel. Insofar as such loss and liability represents the claim of cargo owner, paid or payable by the non-carrying vessel to the owners of cargo. Now plus set off recouped or recovered by the other or non-carrying ship from the carrying vessel as part of their claim against the carrying vessel. So this is what is both to blame collision. So both to blame collision clause becomes a tool that is compatible to the immunity that is provided by the Hague rule. So usually you will find both to blame collision incorporated in bills of lading, on the reverse of bills of lading, which is good for the carrier. It is also incorporated in the cargo policies. The cargo insurer provides indemnity to the cargo owner. Now this clause should be inserted in all the agreements which the owner is making. Say for example, if he is making any agreement with the shipper, with the charterer, the idea is to protect the owner's interest against such claims which can be made by the other ship. This clause, as I said, is inserted in cargo policies, cargo insurance policies in a slight different way. Clause 3 is in respect of both to blame collision. Now, in respect of cargo owner, what the insurer says that in case there is a claim from the carrier in respect of the payment to be made subsequent to the collision, then cargo insurer indemnifies the cargo owner in respect of any claim that has to be paid by the cargo interest to the carrier, right, as a result of both to blame collision clause. Under cargo insurance policy, the assured agrees to inform or intimate the insurer in respect of such claims coming from carrier, and in the bargain the cargo insurer promises that he would protest against such claim. There is a situation where the ship owner fails in his responsibility of providing a seaworthy vessel at the beginning, or master does not exercise due diligence. So there is a chance that the cargo owners may not have to pay the carrier. So the cargo insurer at his cost and expense will support the cargo owner in respect of any claim. Both to blame collision clause earlier in cargo policies was called Toluma clause, because in 1935 there was a ship called Toluma whereby the similar clause was inserted. There was a responsibility or obligation on the ship owner to inform or notify the cargo insurer in respect of any such claim coming, whereby cargo insurer at their cost and expense will defend the cargo owners. So both to blame collision clause coming in bills of lading would ensure that the carrier, in case he has to pay any money to the non-carrying vessel, they could recover that money from the cargo interest. Now let us look at the collision from US point of view. any litigation that happens in US, regardless of the nationality of the ship, or according to the US law, what happens is the degree of blame is not considered. Each vessel, that is the carrying vessel, is able to recover 100% of the damage from the other vessel. So if both the vessels are carrying cargo, each vessel, the cargo owner is able to recover 100% of the money from the other vessel, 100% of the damages from the other vessel. Now let us consider, for simplicity, that the cargo is carried only on one ship and the other vessel is non-carrying vessel. So non-carrying vessel coming in collision with a carrying vessel, there is damage to the cargo. Now this cargo owner is able to recover 100% of the damages from the non-carrying vessel. Non-carrying vessel, because the US principle goes for 50-50, non-carrying vessel is able to recover 50% of the damages which he has paid to the cargo owner back from the carrying vessel. So let us also understand here, if in US water the both to blame collision clause comes into play, what happens? So let us say there is a carrying vessel and a non-carrying vessel. The non-carrying vessel, after colliding with the carrying vessel, the cargo owner of the carrying vessel is able to recover 100% damages from non-carrying vessel. Non-carrying vessel in return will recover 50% from the carrying vessel. Now, the carrying vessel has paid 50% of the total damages to the non-carrying vessel. This 50% which he has paid to the non-carrying vessel, he will forward the bill to the cargo interest and he will recover the money from him in case both to blame collision clause applies. Let us consider a case where US principle of 50-50 liability is applied, and we will consider both the situation, number one, when both to blame collision does not apply, and number two, when both to blame collision applies. So let us say there is a ship A which incurs, this is a carrying ship, incurs a loss of $80,000 for the cargo. There is a cargo loss of 80,000, and here's ship B, which is non-carrying vessel, and there is a loss of $40,000. Now there is no cargo on B and there is no ship damage on A, just the cargo damage. Now what happens is, because there is a cargo damage here of 80,000, the cargo owner will recover 80,000. B will pay the cargo of A US dollar 80,000. Now B will recover 40,000. A will pay B US dollar 40,000. In addition to this, A will also pay B US dollar 20,000 as 50% of 40,000. So this is the situation. So if we analyze this, then what happens? The loss of A will be 40,000. That is the money that he's paid, plus 20,000, which is 50% of B's damage. The loss of A, the net loss of A is 40,000, which he has paid as 50% of the 80,000, and 20,000, which he has paid as 50% of the B's damage. So total loss of A is equal to 60,000. Now let us analyze this situation from the B's point of view. B incurs a loss of 40,000 because that is the loss or damage to his ship. Then he pays 80,000 to the cargo owner, right? He pays 80,000 to the cargo owner, that is 100% of the cargo loss. But we'll minus 40,000 because he recovers 40,000, and we will also minus 20,000 because that is 50% of the own loss recovered from the other ship. So this becomes minus 60, that means plus 20 plus 40. So the net loss of B is 60,000. So you have seen net loss of A is 60,000, net loss of B is 60,000. This is applying 50-50 principle. That is the US principle. So talking about both to blame collision. Now if both to blame collision does not happen, then 60,000 each is the loss of A and B. But in case both to blame collision works here, both to blame collision works here. So you've seen that A has paid B 40,000. A will recover that 40,000 from the cargo insurers. Let's consider this other situation where there is a damage of US dollar 80,000 to ship A. As far as ship B is concerned, the damage to the ship is US dollar 40,000 and damage to cargo is US dollar 40,000 again. As it can be seen clearly, B is a carrying vessel and A is non-carrying vessel. Non-carrying vessel, that is A, has to give US dollar 40,000 to the cargo interest, right? Ship A also have to pay 50% of 40,000, that is the ship's damage. We are talking about US rules. We are talking about US rule, which is 50-50. The cargo interest of B will recover 100% of the damage, that is 40,000 from A. Now A, having paid 40,000 to the cargo interest, will recover 20,000 back. So 20,000 goes back from you. Now let us look at the situation from A's point of view. Let's look at the A's account. A has a loss of 80,000, which is the loss to the ship, plus he pays 40,000 to B, that is the damage towards the cargo. Now, as far as the recovery is concerned, in respect of the ship's damage, A's damage is 80,000, B's damage is 40,000, the difference is 40,000, half of the difference is 20,000, so he gets 20,000 back in respect of ship's damage because the liability is 50-50, plus he gets 20,000 back because he had paid 40,000 to the other ship and he recovers 50% of that. So net losses, if we talk about, A's net loss is 80,000 US dollar. So this is the net loss of A. Now if we look at the B's account, now B's own damage, that is the ship damage, is US dollar 40,000. Now in addition to this, he pays the difference of 80 and 40 divided by 2, that is 20,000. As the liability is 50%, without considering the cargo damage, just the ship damage, 80,000 here and 40,000 here, the difference of the two divided by 2, right? Difference of the 2 divided by 2 is 20,000. Plus, as the ship A had paid 40,000 and 50% of 40,000, that is 20,000 was returned. Right? So this is the account of B, 40 plus 20 plus 20, 80,000. So we can say the net loss of A is also 80,000, net loss of B is also 80,000. Now let us change the situation slightly. Let us say in this collision, B's blame is 80% and A's blame is 20%. So now as the ship A is damaged and the liability is 20% and B is also damaged, the liability in the collision is 80%. So how much will A get from B? He will get 80% of 80,000. That is 64,000, because this is not 50-50 liability now. This is proportionate liability. So 80% of 80,000 will go from B to A. Now there is a cargo damage of 40,000 and ship damage of 40,000, but ship A does not pay entire amount or 50% amount or whatever. So it is the damage 40,000 multiplied by own liability, that is 20%, that is equal to 8,000. So he pays 8,000 towards the ship damage and likewise he pays 8,000 only towards the cargo damage. So total payment made is 16,000. That means if we talk That means if we talk about the loss of A, it is 64,000 minus 16,000. So that is 48,000. This is a loss of A. So that is A's account. And this is because of the proportionate liability. Now let us look at B's account. B's own loss is 40,000. Then he pays 80% of 80,000, that is 64,000 to the other ship. At the same time, as far as the recovery is concerned, he gets 20% of 40,000, that is 8,000 from the other ship, because the liability is 20%, 80%. So if we look at this calculation, this becomes 104,000 minus 8,000, that is 96,000. That is the net loss caused to B. Now, as far as the cargo owner's account is concerned, initially he incurs a loss of 40,000, but then he recovers 8,000 US dollar. So net loss is 32,000. Now these results are going to vary according to the law that is applicable and various other situations. We may not go into the details, but the carrying vessel, if you notice here, is likely to escape the liability of his proportion, right? As you have seen in this calculation. I hope I have made myself clear. We are not talking about the detailed calculations which will happen, including the P&I and hull and machinery, etc. But at least what is the role of both to blame collision.